Noah, am I seeing things or did you fix your roof?
No, yeah, it's not fixed. It's just the angle of where the camera is
First
at.
thing I noticed, I'm like, wait, Noah has a roof. Usually it's just a vacant attic space.
No,
Is that
it's right
tape?
Oh,
there.
Oh no, there it
oh
is.
yeah.
There it is.
There's
Yep.
Holy.
It's
I swear the hole used to be a lot bigger, or maybe it's just me.
no,
Well,
I was so embarrassed that I didn't want to show the entire thing. But
good.
no, now my dad tells me he's gonna take the entire roof down in the basement. So it's only gonna get worse before it gets better. So
To
So
be
the
yeah.
fair,
next
the
time you take like your electric moped out somewhere, however you young people travel, pop by, get a
What?
little get a little piece of gyprock from like a hardware store. Just stick it in there. Paint it whatever
Yeah.
you want. Just or paint cardboard. Something.
Yeah, that would be a good solution. However, I'm just gonna leave that to people who know how to do that stuff, like my dad, or like a handyman or something like that. I'm good at writing, not necessarily like fixing roofs.
Your
I would have got
tool
into
is your
carpentry
keyboard.
if yeah, no, that's
I'm
my only skill.
I'm worried that a posse of possums and raccoons are going to team up and come down through that hole at any time.
Oh, I need company. It gets lonely down here. I wouldn't mind raising a little family of possums. That'd be great.
They're a little hissy. All right, this is too much fun for a Friday. Let's get started. Welcome to Off the Record, which is broadcasted on the internet. My name is Kris Sims. I'm the Alberta Director for the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. I'm joined by my friends from True North, Noah and Isaac. Thank you so much for joining us today. Lots of fun things to talk about, namely that I'm right. And that NDP leader Jagmeet Singh is not going to bring down the Trudeau government anytime soon, no matter how much he huffs and puffs and tries to pretend to blow the house down. Here's your headline: Singh will not support attempts by the Conservative Party of Canada and the Bloc Quebecois to trigger an early election. Shocker to exactly nobody. And of course, this thing will just keep rolling on and rolling on. My prediction is that we're going to, so I think he qualifies for his pension in February of this coming year. After that, we're going to have a federal budget, which is an automatic confidence vote because it's a big money bill. And presto bango, I think we're going to be having an election sometime around April or May. What's your guys' take?
Well, I think that Jagmeet Singh has proven himself to be one of the most dishonest politicians in Ottawa. Like we can say a lot about Justin Trudeau and the dishonesty of his government, all the scandals that his government is responsible for. However, Jagmeet Singh routinely just tries to deceive the Canadian public, and I think it's crazy. You can see that from his messaging on inflation, the greedflation thing, which is like the most nonsense economic statement possible. And he does this routinely, talking about how Pierre Poilievre's going to take away your abortion rights and stuff like that. And now he's told the Canadian people 2 months ago. Now time flies. 2 months ago, he pulled out of the confidence and supply agreement and basically made it seem like he was going to stand off against Trudeau in Parliament, and it was going to really, take it to him and bring down the government. If they make just one little mistake, because that's what was holding him back with the supply and confidence agreement. But it seems as if the affairs in Ottawa just goes on as they always have been for the past few years, and he is supporting the Trudeau government. It seems as if Jagmeet Singh is more supportive of the Trudeau government than like 24 Liberal MPs. It's kind of crazy. So I think that Jagmeet Singh really needs to take a look in the mirror. If he wants to gain some seats in the next election, he's going to have to come out against this very, very unpopular prime minister. And the longer he continues to support Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, he will be not. He won't make any progress in the polls. I think we have a clip of Jagmeet Singh. Talking about what his justification for not bringing down the Trudeau government along with the Bloc Quebecois.
Does that mean that you will not work with the Bloc and Conservatives to bring down the government?
We know people are hurting right now. People are struggling right now. They're having a hard time affording their groceries. They're having a hard time affording a place to call home. And seniors are just getting help with their teeth. I'm not going to let Pierre Poilievre, the king cut himself, and the Bloc decide when to cut these things that people need. I'm not going to let them cut the things that people need. So no, I'm not going to play their games.
Game playing.
Yeah,
Really?
it's just dishonest messaging. At least I respect Guy Francois Blanchet. He went to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and he tried to get some concessions out of him. He tried to get, boost some support for seniors, and he also tried to, get some Quebec specific policies, as he is apt to do. And after a few weeks of negotiation, before the negotiation, he told the press straight up, "I'm gonna take a few weeks, and if the Prime Minister takes no action to move towards our demands, we're going to call for election, or tell the Conservatives and NDP to pull their support from the government." He did that, and then he told reporters, "Yeah, we're not getting anywhere. We don't support the government." That's how you become a effective negotiator. You state your demands clearly and you act upon them. And if the other party doesn't want to budge, you just pull out your support. And Jagmeet Singh, he's been trying to do this for 3 years and he hasn't made any progress whatsoever. So
Has he though? Has he really been trying? I don't know.
I think he's trying. I just think he's really, really incompetent. I don't know. What do you think, Isaac? Do you think Jagmeet Singh's been trying, or he's just really bad at his job?
Look, here's what I'll say. He mentioned the dental program, which I saw Justin Trudeau tweet about. Oh, the dental program has served 1 million Canadians. This is half the number of Canadians that are attending a food bank on, I think, a monthly basis or even daily, which is 2 million Canadians. So talk about flawed priorities. And here, really, Jagmeet Singh, I mean, come on, he's the poster boy for hypocrisy. Every single thing that leaves his mouth or his X account is hypocritical. All he does is bash the government as if it's the bane of every Canadian's existence, which it is, by the way, and yet he's the only person holding them up.
It's pretty messed up. I will say this on pensions. The Canadian Taxpayers Federation is presenting at committee next week on the issue of, get this for disingenuousness, moving the election ahead by 1 week. The scheduled official election date in next October is when it's technically supposed to happen, bumping it ahead 1 week. And this government actually has the audacity to claim that it's because they don't want to interrupt with Diwali, and not because a whole bunch of members of parliament will automatically come into their pensions. So if they have it early, around 80 MPs or so, roughly around there, I think is the number, a bunch of MPs, regardless, will not be able to get a pension. But if they have it a week later, bango, because they've served for 6 whole years, they then qualify for a pension, which of course we're calling them out on that nonsense, because if they're so worried about, interrupting a really important festival like Diwali, just have it earlier. Why aren't you having it earlier, guys? Why later? So yeah, this ridiculous hypocrisy. Do we want to jump over to the bureaucrat podcast extravaganza?
Let's go.
So here at the Canadian Taxpayers Federation, we have an investigative journalist, like a real one. He's paid by us. He's on salary. He's on staff, Ryan Thorpe. And he dug up these Freedom of Information requests that actually surprised me. I had no idea these things existed. Apparently, departments, the bureaucracies within the federal government, have their own podcasts. Yeah, like Statistics Canada has its own podcasts. I know, you're wondering, how can I listen to this? Not. This is the funniest part, though, is that these bureaucrat podcasts that nobody listens to have cost the taxpayer nearly $2 million. So here it is. This is from our website at taxpayer.com. You can just see here dozens of departments and agencies. Okay, so this isn't a one-off, okay? This isn't somebody at Heritage Committee or Heritage Department who's sad about not being a journalist anymore and starts his or her own little podcast. No. This is like Statistics Canada. I bet you that the agency that manages our bridges also has a podcast. And shocker, nobody's listening to these things. But what's really crazy is, again, I don't understand how they managed to spend nearly $2 million. Because I asked, this is not just the salaries of the involved bureaucrats that were adding up on an abacus. No. This is actual billing. This is like cost. And, no offense, Noah, to like the hole in your roof and stuff. And like my microphone's pretty nice. It shouldn't cost $2 million to put together a podcast. What did you guys think about this story?
completely absurd. I mean, this microphone here cost $30. I didn't pay $30 for it. I got it at a contest at school, but $30 microphone, laptop, most people have a laptop or whatever, and you get like a $5 cable, and boom, there's your podcast. It's pretty simple, get some free audio recording software, and there you go. $2 million. I have no clue where that money went. Are they getting like some premium microphones that cost like $10,000, and they're building out a whole studio for a podcast that are listened to by like the people who actually produce the podcast, and that's about it? It's absurd. And I was thinking, like, what are they talking about in these podcasts? I think like Housing, Infrastructure, and Communities Canada are probably talking about the details of how they pour the cement for like a bridge or whatever. It's like, we poured the cement on an 86-degree angle or something like that, or like StatsCan, they're gonna read to you like some like boring fertility numbers, or like, oh, this is the number of people that that came to this country as a tourist or whatever. It's like, nope, nobody wants to hear these things. Nobody wants to hear these things. There's a reason why Canadians are producing podcasts themselves, because they know what the Canadian people want, and they can deliver to the people what they want, and viewers get to choose with their dollars or with their time what podcasts they decide to listen to. However, the federal government, they're just unnaturally trying to force us onto the Canadian people. The Canadian people aren't listening to it, and then now the Canadian people have to pay for it. That is utterly insane. It is. Yeah, it's definitely a scandal, but obviously, there's all these scandals on a daily basis that come out of the government that we can't even keep track of. So yeah, this is like scandal number 1,584. So it's just a long line of over and over again wasting taxpayers' money. And this is just another example of just an egregious waste of money that I hope a future government will slash and cut back on.
I'm going to read some of the titles of the podcasts out, but Isaac, I wanted to get your take in the meantime. So are
Yeah.
you subscribed now? Are you
No,
told?
I was looking at you with anticipation, Kris, because I'm like, oh, it looks like she has something nice to share. But what I will say is, when you mentioned Statistics Canada had a podcast, I'm a bit of a nerd, so I got a bit excited, like, ooh, a Statistics Canada podcast. But I mean, really, I would be bored in 2 minutes. I would rather read their reports, like they release
Isaac, you
one
need to see a
interesting report a week.
psychiatrist.
Are you a
I'm
whale
like, ooh,
psychologist?
I'm
Yeah.
like, ooh, data, nice. We can learn about data. But no, as for how this $2 million was spent, I'm in the same boat as you, Noah. I don't see how this is in any way, shape, or form possible, other than maybe paying like agencies and people to boost your shows and ad. I mean, but again, what are you doing? Boosting your viewers from 2 to 4? Like, what's the point? No one wants to listen to bureaucrats at the Liberal government speak about their programs. I mean, yeah, Kris, do you have any ideas into like what kind of shows we're looking at here?
Okay, so to be clear, like, it isn't just the salaries that are added up into this. They actually cost money outside of their salaries. Like, for example, the podcast cost taxpayers $155,736. This is for one podcast, okay? The costs include $9,000 for podcast training and consultation, $2,000 for equipment, right? Like, this is just nuts. It racked up $30,000 in expenses on top of salary costs. Like, this is just one podcast. This is a really funny one, though. Here, I wanted to actually read this to you. It was from Statistics Canada, and it was what they are actually talking about. It's called A Sayers Podcast from Statistics Canada. It has 21 episodes since January of 2021. So I guess they were getting a little stir crazy too. Episode topics have ranged from gender identity to climate change and misinformation and to systemic racism. This is,
The Liberal
again,
Party platform.
StatsCan.
Yeah, literally.
This is StatsCan. This is not, oh, wow, look at how, our population is changing. Like, maybe we need better roads here. No. It's all the same old stuff, but it's just bureaucrats talking to each other when nobody listens to them, and you get to pay for it. Now, to be clear, like, cards on the table. If you want to have a podcast about, like, LGBTQ plus ghosts, which actually one of them talked about, I'm not kidding. Like, the word paranormal is in there in this kind of stuff.
Oh my
Fill
gosh.
your boots. Honestly, I'd probably go watch that show. I'm a huge Beetlejuice fan. Do it. It's really fun and entertaining. But do it on your own time. Like, don't make taxpayers pay for this stuff. And this is where it gets pretty wild, because whenever we come forward and we say, guys, you have a 40-something billion dollar deficit, could you maybe lay off the spending? Could you balance the budget? Could you stop doubling the debt? They just clutch their pearls and they say, what do you want to cut first? Dental care to old people or daycare to desperate children? How about you stop this? Number one. Anyway, it was pretty good. So
No,
guys, go check it out. It's all over even the mainstream media picked this up because it's so ridiculous. Look up government bureaucracy podcasts and read the titles for yourself. Go listen to them. Seriously, go listen to them. You paid for
Yeah.
them. You own those podcasts. Do we want to get to where did we want to go from here? Do we want to get to the CBC hosting the next debate? Is that where we're headed now, boys?
Yeah, so essentially, the CBC is going to host the next federal leadership debate, which is wonderful for those of you who have ever watched debates in the United States and what happens with their moderators. Very, very fair and unbiased. Obviously, this is sarcasm. And I'm sure that we can expect the same with these upcoming debates because it should become as a surprise to nobody that Pierre Poilievre has been very, very critical of the CBC. So by default, you would expect them to treat him unfairly. Do you guys think that we're going to see fair and unbiased moderated debates here coming up?
No, not really. I remember watching the 2019, 2021 leaders debates. And I just remember thinking, like, wow, the format of these debates are really bad. Say what you want about the American presidential debates and how the moderators go about doing their job, but I think at least the format is pretty decent. The candidates, they get some time to do their opening spiel, and then they get to go back and forth with each other on the live mics and basically try and push back on each other's ideas and really go at it. Whereas the Canadian debates are very, very sanitized. They try and just avoid all conflict and confrontation between the candidates. And even when they have open time to speak between the candidates, it just comes off as very tame and very muted. Now I hope that when Pierre Poilievre gets on stage, he's going to try and flip the table and change that whole dynamic. And it seemed like Andrew Scheer tried to do that, a little unsuccessfully. I mean, he did lose the election, but at least with the debates in America, they're entertaining to watch, especially the Joe Biden Trump one. That it was pretty funny to watch. So and the reason why viewership is going down for these debates is because they are just very boring to watch. Even people who are very interested in politics thinks they're boring, which is saying something because these people, including myself, are politicals. Like this is all we do our entire lives. So I think that when you are losing the people that are very interested in politics, the people who are not interested in politics but still need to make a voting decision, they're just not going to tune in. They're just going to listen to what the candidates have to say, and that might be for the best if you're not a fan of debates, but it certainly isn't good. That we're having the CBC host it, which is funded by taxpayer dollars instead of a network that could do a much better job. I'm not saying that CTV and Global and all these other networks are amazing. But what I am saying is that, they have the resources to put on such a debate, and we're not giving them these debates. We're instead giving it to the public broadcaster, who by and large has lost the trust of the Canadian people. And it seems like an idiotic decision in line with everything that has come in these past 9 years.
So the mainstream media has lost the trust of the public, like by and large. I think it's around 7 in 10 Canadians or Americans even think that the mainstream media is deliberately misleading them. These aren't oopsies or accidentally mispronouncing a name or getting a date wrong or something, which happens to all of us because we're human. But no, like I think around 70%, give or take, of people actually believe that they're deliberately trying to mislead them. And they should think that, because some of the stuff that we've seen pulled here on either side of the aisle is pretty crazy. From the taxpayer's perspective, we want lower taxes, less waste, and more accountable government. So for us, we want things to be as simple and bare bones and basic and clear as possible. So if someone, for example, like Steve Paikin, is very balanced, he asks very serious, insightful questions. You can't tell how the guy votes, which is how it should be with journalists. And so if someone like him is asking the questions, and if you have an audience that is invited from all different perspectives on the political spectrum, I mean, they can't hoot and holler and throw things, of course, but if they're there to naturally respond to what people are saying in the room, that's really good for accountability. and asking people questions and kind of keeping the room kind of a good human tone, if that makes sense. And so as long as it's that nice and bare bones and well done, produced where it isn't wasting a lot of money, no ridiculous little sound effects like they did with the Conservative Party leadership
Oh,
debate. Remember that? I'd
that
rather
was
not think
awful.
about it. That was so embarrassing.
Yeah,
With the
no.
sad trombone sound effects, like,
And then like, what's your favorite book? You know, what Netflix show are you watching lately? It's like,
what shampoo do you
please
use?
don't repeat that. Fire.
Do you like long walks on the beach? No, that's silly. We want to know, how are you going to be spending our money? What do you think about things like government accountability? Like, I don't know, recall legislation at the federal level, good stuff like that, where people can actually hold their politicians to account. That's the kind of stuff, meat and potatoes, good stuff that we look for in a debate. And as long as it's done that way and efficiently, our people are pretty happy. Speaking of people being happy, did we want to get to our kicker? Apparently something's happening in the United States this coming Tuesday.
Yeah, something big, eh?
Yeah. Are we going to do predictions, or what are we doing here? What do we think is going to happen? Isaac, you take that one away.
Okay. I definitely
And I'm going to
predict.
hold you to this. If it
Yeah,
doesn't
no,
work,
I
you're
definitely
fully
predict
responsible.
Trump to win. What I really hope for is that the election is fair and there's little question of election integrity. And I don't know if it goes the opposite direction and there's some really sketchy things that happen. Obviously, that's going to just create more unrest in the United States, and I don't want to see what that could crumble into. So I really do think Trump will win. I don't know by what margin I'm thinking, but I mean, I expect him to have a decisive victory.
Yeah, I think I'm. If you're a Republican, my prediction is a little less optimistic. I think it'll be a coin toss. I have a coin here, so let's say heads is Trump, tails is Kamala, and we got Trump. So yeah, there we go. That's what's gonna happen, and Trump's gonna win. But no, in all honesty, I think it's a coin toss. I think that both campaigns have fell into their respective pitfalls. Trump, he shot himself in the foot by inviting Tony Hinchcliffe into that MSG rally, which even if you like the joke, it was not a good idea to have a guy come up and do racial jokes. Just like it's not a good idea when Kamala Harris is inviting Megan Thee Stallion on stage, shake her rump or whatever, or at least rap about songs about that stuff. And then Biden, he also shot his vice president in the foot when he said that Trump's people are garbage. So definitely both campaigns ran flawed, mixed campaigns. They had their high moments, they had their low lights. So I think it'll definitely come down to a few swing states. It looks like Pennsylvania could swing either way, although it looks like maybe Trump will win that. Maybe Michigan will go to Harris. It really depends on just a few states in the United States on how this election will be determined. But I think that in the event of a Trump president of a Harris victory, we're going to see Trump deny the results. Like it looks like he's lobbying himself up for that, and I think that it'll be helpful to healing the sort of American consciousness if he doesn't do that, if he generally does lose. So we'll see, but yeah, it's definitely a coin toss in my opinion.
As a longtime journalist, both mainstream and alternative or startup journalist, I'm always tell everybody, watch the clips for yourself. Go back, watch, if you can, watch the entire speech. Trust me, go do it yourself and listen to it. So in that spirit, I actually wanted to play the clip that Noah's referencing there to set this up. Again, like he was pointing out, there was that massive rally at Madison Square Garden. Some comedian got up there and told, I thought it was a stupid joke and completely pointless. And anybody who's planning a political organization campaign shouldn't book people like that. Okay, pro tip for free. So he said some stupid joke. And then, who is still currently the sitting president of the United States of America, Joe Biden, was doing an interview. Looks like it was some form of like a Skype interview. And he was responding to that joke. This is what he said. Roll tape.
I don't know the Puerto Rican that I know, or Puerto Rico where I'm in my home state of Delaware. They're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters.
Yeah, so if you're watching American stuff, that's making a lot of waves, and it's even spurred former President Trump to even climb into a garbage truck That was quite the photo op, and get a lot of press out of it. So again, this is the kind of, I'm a big fan of professional wrestling, and it looks an awful lot like WWF in the few days leading up to it. From the taxpayers' perspective, it doesn't really affect Canadian taxpayers necessarily. The main thing, though, are things like pipelines going to the United States. That's a big one. And possible trade tariffs.
Yeah.
So we got to keep a real close eye on that, because that could definitely affect taxpayers up here on this side of the border. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your great show today. Folks, if you have any comments or questions, please feel free to hit up the True North website. And remember, everything we've said here is off the record.
Yeah,
Good stuff,
Kris,
guys.
I watched the Rogan Trump interview, obviously, and Trump really was presenting himself as the king of tariffs. Like, all he did half the podcast was talk about tariffs.
Yep.
I'm really curious, what does the CTF think about that? Because obviously, if Trump takes office, he's going to implement all of these tariffs based on what he was saying on that show there.
So it goes two ways. So if we had tariffs, for example, like good or bad, like I've got a streak of prairie populism in me too, of let's make everything in Canada and have it all homegrown. Like, I'm a bit torn. But I also understand the importance of international trade. Like, Sweden about 120 years ago was literally starving to death because we didn't have international trade of food. So international trade is super important. Tariffs, you can even call them import taxes, because that's what they are. Now, the question, though, is with the United States, are they big and powerful enough of an economy that if Trump does impose tariffs, it is tit for tat, to use a weird expression. Will they actually suffer financially by having tariffs, or will other players have to step up to the plate, like happened when he was first president? So when he was first president, keep in mind, he started hitting China with these tariffs. And then what did we get? COVID. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. That was just a couple months later. So this is
Yeah.
like big boy marbles now.